Meeting of the school board in public for the purpose of conducting the school corporation's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There will be time for public participation as indicated by the agenda. Visitors requesting permission to address the board on a specific agenda item should sign in before the meeting starts on the form on the board table. The board requests a discussion time limit of 3 minutes on any specific agenda item. We ask visitors to make only one appearance per item. We ask those addressing the board to speak from the podium to state their name and address. Board policy 0167.3 dictate that personnel issues will not be addressed. Concerns about individual employees of the district should be brought to the superintendent or designee. The meeting site is fully accessible. Any person requiring further accommodations should contact the superintendent at the school corporation's central office. Before all our meetings, we usually have a prayer, so Mr. Bertrand. Sure.
Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us to make it through another day. Please be with us as we do the work for all of our schools in the Lebanon Community District. Please be with all of our employees, especially our teachers and administrators, as we will be going back to school here soon. Please be with them as they get ready for a new school year. Please be with all those that serve and protect us all around the world. In your name we pray. Amen.
Okay, the board trustees request to silence your cell phones. We call the pledge of allegiance. Mr. Wiry.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Ms. Keith is absent. Mission statement, Mr. Merritt.
Lebanon Community School Corporation will cultivate and reach every student by influencing and enriching their lives through the power of education, and do so in a positive and safe learning environment.
Good news, Dr. Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Herr. It's my pleasure this evening to bring to the board some items of good news. As it is summertime, not a lot of student activity going on, but a lot of good items coming to closure here as far as construction projects. I'm pleased to report that the tennis courts are worked on and the #1 court's done. And actually, we've been blessed with some rain to test it out, and Mr. Tate thinks it's pretty good. I don't know if he's hit the ball yet on it, but it looks like it's good. And we're going to fill in some cracks and just kind of finish up the other courts, but that's done well. Our track has been resurfaced. If you notice that they've resurfaced that, they've got to just put some lines on it, but they did a great job there. There's 5 different coats of topping, rubber topping on that. And then we've started to pour the concrete pads for our bleacher extensions and for the press box, so we're moving forward with that as well. And then inside, they've sanded the gym floor on the first time. There's, I think, 3 or 4 different sandings that they go through, but and the lower bleachers have all been put up, so if you get a chance, you might stick your head in down there. There's some nice little graphics there when the bleachers are pushed in. Little LHS Tiger logos, they're there. So we're excited about that. Our video boards and scoreboards are in, so all that project's coming together as well. So we're pleased with our construction projects. As you can see, the high school parking lots have been prepped and ready to go for the for the student painting again. So the Lebanon Art Festival, as it's come to be known in my mind anyway, will get started. That's always a great time as well. Some other things going on as far as staff development. Here in the Herman B. Wells room, Inwell, who's a partner of ours, is hosting a crisis training for law enforcement and educators on dealing with some mental health issues. We have 7 counselors. We have 4 administrators, 2 central office personnel. Ms. Lynette Clark is helping to manage that, but that's gone real well. And I think there's somewhere around 50 or 60 total participants. I'm looking at you, Lynette, so you can shake your head and say no. But we have law enforcement from around Boone County, and a lot of top individuals are in, and so that's invaluable training for us, and we appreciate that. That's been well received. And Mrs. Scott was responsible for kind of coordinating that out of passion for her that would be Diane Scott, not Kristen Scott, but they both get credit. So we're real pleased to talk about that. And that's the good news I bring. We're ready to go to school. Online registration has been going on. If you know anyone that's got school-age children, tell them we're open for business and excited to have them. But the buildings have all gone through their summer cleanings, and that's finalized and getting ready to go. And so we're just excited. All our administrators are back, and we'll be back in full swing here this week. So another school year. 1718 is upon us, and we're excited about that. So thank you for allowing us to share the good news this evening with the board.
All right, let's move on. Agenda item number 2, approval of minutes. We need approval for the June 20th, 2017 regular session. Any motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Merritt, second.
Second.
Mr. Meyer, any questions? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes for the June 20th regular session, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Number 3, the certify executive session content for the July 5th, 2017 executive session. Board, I need a motion on this.
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Bertrand,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Wiry. Any questions? All those in favor of passing the certified executive session, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Audience to visitors. Harley Sheets.
My name is Harley Sheets. I'm a 1954 graduate of Lebanon High School. First of all, I want to congratulate whoever was responsible for getting Herman Wells' name out there. He's a true Boone County icon. I want to talk about another Boone County icon, which I imagine most of you, 90% of you, have never heard of. His name is Paul Butch Newman. I would like to see, after giving you all his credentials, about getting his name placed on the court in our basketball gymnasium. This is what Paul Butch Newman has accomplished. I'll start out with his high school career at Lafayette Jeff. He was the star for 3 years, 1919, 20, and 21. Twice they were runners-up, once they got to the Final Four. He then went to Purdue and played for Piggy Lambert, who's in the National Basketball Hall of Fame, who started his career here at Lebanon before he went to Purdue. Lebanon, back at the beginning of basketball, from 1911 to 21, was the Muncie Central of Indiana high school basketball. In the first 11 years, they won 3 state championships. In the years they didn't win, they beat the state champion in the regular season. Now, about 1920 to 1930, they had a lull, and the people of Lebanon didn't like that. So they went to Piggy Lambert and asked for somebody that could get the basketball program back on its feet. He chose Paul Butch Newman. Butch came here, was his first varsity coaching job. Coached 13 years, won 13 sectionals, and in his final year took Lebanon to the final game of the state, where they were beaten by Fort Wayne Central. After that, he retired and became our principal for 21 years and was responsible for getting this new school. He was the impetus for getting this new school started. You know about those schools. But he was inducted into the Hall of Fame way before Jim Rosenstiel. And when I saw Jim's name on this gym, I wasn't too happy. I'd like to see Paul Butch Newman, because Paul Butch Newman is the one that talked Jim Rosenstiel into coming here. These words come from Jim Rosenstiel's mouth. He said, when Butch asked me to come down here to see about the job, I told my wife that I would listen. It doesn't hurt to listen, but I'm not coming. But Butch Newman talked him into it, because he knew Rick Mount was going to be around. Now, Butch Newman was responsible for Jim Rosenstiel coming here and was inducted into the High School Basketball Hall of Fame years before Jim Rosenstiel. Had it not been for Butch Newman, we may never have heard of Jim Rosenstiel again, other than he was from Zionsville. So that's about all I've got to say, and I think that he needs to be remembered. You don't see hardly anything about him here in our gymnasium. And that man was one of the greatest men that ever come through here. You educators would know if you're principal for 21 years. He would probably ended up being superintendent, but he died in '64, the year he started trying to get this school, new school built. So I'm going to give you, I can't give you all the details of his life, but I'm going to give you, all of you, a book. I don't want you to think this is a bribe or anything. I just want you to be able to remember, to be able to read all about him in detail. Starting on page 38, if you get a chance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just to leave left over after I told him. And I hope I didn't have
Thank
to
you,
take
sir.
up too much time. I told Dave I'd like to have a little more time because when I'm at home, I go downstairs and read, so I forget why I went down. Who did I miss? Anybody here related over here? Maybe she probably won't even care about this. Thank you for listening.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harley.
Thank you, Mr. Appreciate it.
Remember, page 38.
Appreciate you bringing it to our attention. Obviously, I'm a newcomer here, only being in Lebanon 22 years, so I don't know all of the you don't believe everything Coach Hendricks says, but you believe some things. But obviously, you have a passion, and I respect that, and I know the board respects that as well. We're very proud of our traditions here in Lebanon. We have a number of traditions from athletics to academics to fine arts to the parking lot painting. So certainly, I will take a look at this, be speaking with our members of the board as well as our high school representatives. No promises, but certainly appreciate you taking the time to come. You did remember why you came, obviously, so you got up there and spoke, which is better than me sometimes. But anyway, Harley, we appreciate that. Also, I'm well familiar with your passion for Lebanon High School and Lebanon basketball, and that in itself deserves a amount of respect and appreciation. And so on behalf of our school corporation and our community, I thank you for that. We'll take a look and see where we can go with it, and see what we can come up with. So I'm sure that the coach would be quite proud of a former player coming to bat a few years later to speak on his behalf. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you, members of the board.
All right. Move on to consent agenda for routine business matters. Mr. Tate.
At this time, report to the board and the community. Our monthly financial report shows these percents expended as of June 30th. Our general fund at 47.13%, transportation operation at 45.13%. So at this time of the year, and the normal is 50%, so we're tracking under budget so far this year. So that's good news. At this time, I'd ask for approval of the claims number 43024 through 43212, payrolls dated June 23rd and July 7th of 2017. The payrolls total $1,338,995.17. The claims total $2,087,736.13 for a total of $3,426,731.30.
All right, board, we'll do A and B together. I need a motion for the financial report of June 30th and the claims and payments 43024 through 43212 and the payrolls for June 23rd, July 7th.
I will make the motion.
First by Ms. Merritt, second.
Second.
Bertrand, any questions? All in favor of paying our bills, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
I have an answer right
Thank you.
Agenda for routine staff matters, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As is our practice, I would ask the board consider the 4 items under staff matters as one consent agenda, but I do have several that I would like to bring to the board's attention this evening. First, under classified employees, we're presenting this evening 2 custodian replacements and 2 instructional aides replacements for Traders Point Christian Academy, which we do support with special needs. And also, it's my pleasure to bring recommendation from Mr. Levine, Mr. O'Rourke, Ms. Gina Woolery as the new Athletic Office Administrative Assistant. She will be replacing Shay Philbright. So, and I believe Gina is here this evening. Mr. Levine, could you introduce Gina this evening?
This is Gina Woolery, and we're very excited to have her. I think she came from Florida, and thank her this school to take Shay's days and help training for South Carolina. She's done
you can see from our audience to visitor, there's quite a passion here in Lebanon for athletics. So whether it's athletics or taking care of Mr. Levine, it's a challenging job. So you have our condolences and our congratulations as well. So thank you. Moving on then, under certified staff, we do have a letter of resignation this evening submitted by Miss Jeannie James, who's culinary arts at Lebanon High School. Miss James will be moving into the private sector, and so we have her letter to consider this evening. Also, Mrs. Outcow, principal at Central Elementary, is recommending Mr. Chad Salzman for assistant principal at Central, and Mrs. Taggart is recommending Sabrina Blair for fourth grade position. This is a position that is a replacement. Mr. Miller, who is transferring to Central, this is his replacement here. And then also under the ECAs, Mr. O'Rourke, principal at Lebanon High School, is recommending approval for Kendra Whipke and Emily Wolfgang as co-sponsors for the Student Council for the upcoming school year. He is also recommending Ann Helke for the position of sophomore class sponsor. So I present those to the board for your consideration and review this evening.
All right, thank you. All right, board, we'll just put A, B, C, and D together. Need a motion for A, B, C, and D.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Bertrand, second.
I'll second.
Mr. Wire, any questions? All those in favor of the classified, certified, the staff, and the ECA contracts, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And now that that's been approved, it's been my pleasure, Mrs. Outcout, I believe Mrs. Salzman's here. If you could introduce your new assistant principal and our newest member to the LHS administrative family. Chad, anything you'd like to say?
Excited to be here, excited to be working in Lebanon, and ready to start.
Well, again, on behalf of the Lebanon Community School Board of Trustees and our administrative team and staff, we welcome you. I've had a chance to meet with Chad on a couple of different occasions, and I've been very excited about some of the excitement he brings, as well as his experiences both at the special education, but also as working in leadership roles in Noblesville. So we're very excited and looking forward to having him on board at Central Elementary. And I know Mrs. Outcout is excited about having a partner, new partner, and with Amy's departure, she did a great job, but I think we've really plus upped here. And so we're excited to have you, Chad. So welcome on board. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
Number 7, approval for teacher appreciation grant distribution policy. Mr. Tate.
Yeah, just a little background here. The teacher incentive grant, which the funding was based upon ISTEP scores, etc., is now gone. It's replaced by this. This funding is structured by the state to the schools at the rate of $30 per student. So that money will be coming to the school in late December, and then we will distribute it. So according to the law that was passed on the distribution, the school corporation has to adopt a policy every year on how you're going to distribute that. One of the qualifiers was that the highly effective teachers would get a minimum of 25% more than the effective teachers across the state with the money that's distributed to the schools. So I'll read this policy, and then if you have questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Lebanon Community School Corporation will distribute its teacher appreciation grant monies received from the Indiana Department of Education to the teachers who meet the following criteria: employed in the classroom or directly provided education in a virtual classroom setting, received a highly effective or an effective rating on their most recently completed performance evaluation, and employed on December 1st of the year the corporation receives the teacher appreciation grant monies. The school corporation will distribute its teacher appreciation grant monies as follows: to all effective teachers, a stipend as determined by the superintendent; to all highly effective teachers, a stipend in the amount of 25% more than the stipend given to the effective teachers. The school corporation will distribute the stipends within 20 business days of the distribution date by the Indiana Department of Education of the teacher appreciation grant monies to the school corporation. So entertain any questions, and then we request approval of that policy, please.
So just to clarify, the policy is a first reading. So while we were going to move for motion, because it is a policy as stated by statute, we have to use our policy procedure, which is a first reading this month. We'll have a second reading next month and a vote at that time. But Mr. Chate's here to entertain any question or comment you might have. concerning this policy.
On the breakdown, it went to 25%, is that, I mean, how's that, is it on the lump sum of amount, or?
So what I will do is, we take the dollar amount, we set aside 15% of that to cover the FICA match and the turf match, the teacher retirement. So 85% of the money we will get. Then I'll take the number of teachers that are eligible, and I'll when the evaluations are completed, I'll have to take the number that are effective and highly effective, determine the stipend for the effective, so that the highly effective get 25% more than that. So for example, if the effective teacher was to get $400 stipend, the highly effective teacher has to get 25% more than that, which would be a $500 stipend. So all those calculations come into, and then there's a lot of factors. I gotta know how many highly effective, how many effective, what the dollar amount is, and then we'll do the calculations.
And the percent was set by the legislature.
So if a teacher, because this is be the 16, 17 school year.
Correct. It's the evaluation they would get in 16, 17. That will be finalized here coming this fall, and then we'll receive the money in December and distribute it in December.
But if they retired in the 16, 17,
They're not eligible. They have to be employed on December 1st.
okay, of this next,
Correct.
and the state will let you know the dollar amount?
Yeah, once we turn in our student count in September,
Okay.
then I can calculate $30 per student, but that's what it's based upon, yes, sir.
Is this this sounds an English teacher here, is this more fair of a reward to a teacher doing it this way versus the old way?
There's been issues with some school corporations when their test scores were low. And you may have read last year, some of the Indianapolis schools, some of the teachers barely got a $40 stipend.
Where others got like $3,000.
Yeah, so in that sense, if you're calling fairness, I guess so. The I-STEP was so unreliable, in my opinion, to base rewards upon that caused issues. I'll let Dr. Taylor address what his feelings are.
I think from the standpoint of distribution of funds, it has more equity to it. This was a legislative action based on embarrassment when, some school corporations in our own county were getting $2,700, $2,800 per teacher, and school corporations like Wayne Township and in Marion County were getting $47. And the disparity in the number of socioeconomic factors, whether it was free and reduced or, special needs, whatever factors, there just was not equity at that point. And a large corporation such as MSD Wayne, where you may have 480, 500 teachers, and a smaller corporation where you may have 150 or 170, the distribution of those funds was not equitable. So what the legislation was enacted was, one, to kind of rectify that, the equity. And so now by taking the ADM, taking the total dollar amount, and I think it's still a $30 million, $20 million pool, they have a fund up, they kept their fund of money. Now they're just going to divide that by the ADM around the state. And then this policy that we're having to enact as a result of legislation ensures that there is a differentiation between highly effective and effective. Previously, school corporations had the flexibility, and you would see anywhere from a $1,000 differential to a $1 differential. Just depends on the philosophy and the position and negotiation of what the school corporation did. This establishes as a minimum 25%, and then that percentage is based on the distribution formula that comes as a result of ADM and not necessarily academic performance based on the I-STEP. So to answer your question, I think, David, yes, there's more equity in how the total dollars are distributed. The equity of the I-STEP is still in question, and that's not only my opinion or Mr. Tate's opinion. I think that's the general consensus around the state.
But it still is based solely on test score.
Well, the performance dollar is there.
I mean, yeah.
But
right.
whether a teacher, the ability of a school grade has great impact on an effective or highly effective. You can have a teacher that's through observation and documentation is highly effective, but then you have a school grade scenario that brings that down as the formula factor, and their performance is impacted by the total school grade, which is influenced by the I-STEP results. So when you're 4 through 8 grade, that has a huge impact. And then, of course, the high school has a different salary. They have graduation rate. They have attendance and some of those issues as well. So it's not a good system by any stretch, but they've improved it in the sense that they've been more equitable in the broad distribution. And that didn't come out of, in my opinion, the goodness of their heart. It came out of the fact they just got flat embarrassed when, some of those corporations just said, hey, you can't compare the two scenarios, and yet you're rewarding one at a higher rate than the other. This will still be a stipend, so we still have the stick dollars that we're hoping to bring to the table as well. So I don't know if I answered.
No, that's Charles, anything else? Okay,
So, as a first reading, and we'll have second reading in August and approve it as policy.
Okay, moving on. Number 8, Food Rescue Program, Kelsey Robinson.
Just a quick introduction. My name is Kelsey Robinson, and I'm just graduated from Lebanon High School. And throughout my senior year, you'll see on the PowerPoint that's coming up, I worked on a food rescue program through my work-based learning internship at the Purdue Extension Office of Boone County. And with that food rescue program, essentially, we launched it on March 14th of 2017, and I've been working on it since September of 2016. And I met with several community members dating all the way back to that September date, where I met with the health department, the caring center, our food service director, and of course Dr. Taylor about starting this program in LCSC. And like I mentioned, I worked on this program through my internship site at the Purdue Extension Office. And here's just our totals of what we did in those 2.5 short months. We rescued 3,763 items just from the Lebanon Middle School alone, which led to 753 meals that went out into our community, and it helped prevent 470 pounds of carbon monoxide from going out into the environment. And 1 in 6 people are hungry, and those statistics actually match with Boone County as well, but 40% of our food is wasted. In America alone, we waste enough food to fill Lucas Oil Stadium every day for an entire year. So that wasted food right now, there's over 10,000 people in Boone County alone that wasted food is going back to impact right now. So recently I met with Dr. Taylor about continuing this program not only in LMS but also the elementary schools, which is mainly what this PowerPoint focuses on. And as you can see, we had an abundance of community support. So every organization I met with was more than happy to help us and encourage us. The Solid Waste Management District funded us for a rolling cart and totes, and later funded us for more coolers. And Lowe's Home Improvement graciously worked with us with a Generation On grant to make that funding go in the best ways possible. And the Caring Center has added us to their route 3 times a week so the food can get out on the shelves to our community in the fastest way possible. And just here's some pictures of the whole process throughout. Everything from the refrigerator we were able to get through Lowe's Home Improvement, the rolling carts and tote that we were able to get funded. And in the middle you can see myself with some High Y Boys, which is the club at the middle school that's going to be taking over this program from the leadership aspect of it after I leave for college. And the High Y Club, like I mentioned, took on the leadership role. They did collections every day. I tried to be as hands-off as possible as I knew I would be leaving in the fall. And they did collections every day, did tallies so we would know how much we were collecting and impacting our community. And they are interested in continuing this program into the elementary schools and taking on that role as not only leaders in their own school, but in the others as well. In our collection numbers, like I mentioned before, we collected 3,763 items. And in the first 3 days alone, we collected 212 juices, 101 milks, 24 bananas, and 7 other items, which included crackers or anything basically that has a sealed package. And just issues that we have encountered that have been resolved. Our only main issue that we encountered was we ran out of coolers to transport the food to the Caring Center. So we had food sitting in the refrigerator for another day. So we've already gotten funding for 2 coolers and received them, and they're at the middle school right now. And then another issue that we could come upon with the elementary schoolers is that are they just going to help the cause? Well, the middle school has had a great approach with that, and what they have done is all food that goes into the rescued bins, students can access during their whole lunch. So they know that food is basically only going to the refrigerator if they aren't going to use it. So through this program, that allows the students to see that it's really only for if they're going to throw that food away. And like I mentioned, those over 3,000 items would have truly been thrown away. And what has this program done for LCSC as a whole? It encourages students like myself to get out into the community and enhance their speaking skills by coming and talking to you guys as a board or several other districts or county councils that I've had to speak in front of. And it encouraged us to work as a team with everybody. I not only had to work with fellow students, whether they be middle schoolers, high schoolers, encouraging the program, but also with different members of my internship placement site and different members within the corporation as a whole. It provided to the 10,000 people in Boone County that are food insecure with food items that would have been thrown away anyway. So it's not only helping our environment, but it's helping people right in our own county that need it. And it allowed our students to know that they can make an impact within the community in even the smallest ways possible by setting their food in a separate bin than the trash can. And then who will help with the growth after we continue it? The Highway Boys Club would be taking on my role as speaking to the community and getting the funding for the whole program. Holly Catron and myself would always be available for emails, and the extension office has all the files as well as LMS. And then John Williamson, the food rescue president, has already asked to come and present to the Highway Boys Club and support them from a close aspect in the best ways he possibly can. And then funding the growth, Kiwanis is actually having me speak to them on this Thursday, where I will be mentioning that we are continuing this program into the elementary schools. The Solid Waste Management District has already funded us from the start and would be more than happy to continue. And Lowe's Home Improvement was always willing to work with us on pricing scratched and dented items so we could continue to get good items for the school corporation. And just here's the statistics once again on how we've impacted the community and our school corporation in just a few short months. And thank you for letting me come up and speak and present to you about this program today.
Let me say, if you recall, we had a presentation at the start of the year where Kelsey came to talk to us about a proposal, and we had gone through a rather extensive process of discussion and interview, and you know, what were some of the pros and cons of this program. Let me say, after the year of the program and through her leadership and her guidance and her passion, this was extremely successful. And not only in, as you can see, the numbers, the amount of food, but just in setting an example for our students. And now engaging this and bringing sustainability to this initiative through engagement of other students is just what you could hope for at the highest level. So I want to thank you publicly for the hard work you did. You know, Mrs. Scott kind of brought this in as part of the internship program, but really this was yours to carry forward, Kelsey, and I've been impressed and appreciative of all you've done. So thank you so much. Board, do you have any questions for Kelsey?
Nice job
Yeah,
on the
great job.
program and presenting.
Now let me share too, this was kind of a first, and it does speak volumes about our school corporation. Kelsey, you were part of, I think, probably a first event this evening, in that we had 2 alumni, and that's what you are now. You're an alumnus of Lebanon High School. You're not just a recent graduate, you are, but you're an alumnus. But we had 2 alumni with 63 years apart in graduation from Lebanon High School that brought something of passion to the school board meeting. And while 63 years is not a lot of years, trust me, I can say that, it is significant. And again, it's just one more reason I'm so proud to be part of this corporation, to have the privilege of being superintendent, because when you have graduates that are 63 years apart in age, but yet tied together in their passion of what they believe is good for the school corporation, that speaks volumes to me. So congratulations on your program, but congratulations on being an alumni of Lebanon High School. So thank you very much.
So did you just like stand at the trash can and just say, don't throw that away? Or, I mean, how did you start to collect it?
Well, essentially what I did was I went and I spoke in front of the entire middle school on our 14th day. So I spoke to each separate lunch about what we're doing and why we're doing it. I gave some statistics that I actually gave to you guys, but the 40% of our food is wasted, and the Lucas Oil Stadium, that's right on the road, so we all
What are you doing? Where are you going to college and what are you going to study?
I'm going to Lakeland College in Knoxville, Illinois, and I'll be staying at the apartments right on campus.
Lakers.
Studying, agriculture, I'm going to be an agriculture transfer major and going to agriculture education, which is what my internship was basically placed at with St. John's, Boone County, which is primarily agriculture education throughout the community.
Best of luck to you. Good job.
Again, we'll use Kelsey as a shining example of our internship program. We've had a lot of success, and that's something I should have mentioned in good news, our externship program, where we had teachers out into a number of businesses everywhere from the fire department here in Lebanon to Hendricks to we had teachers attending different businesses and
I think
representatives.
we had 2 on Friday.
You have 2 teachers
Friday
coming.
with us, yeah.
And so this combination of intern for students and extern for teachers really allows a broad-based learning opportunity. Well, academics is important, and don't get me wrong, that's the cornerstone of what we do. It's those life activities that we are affording students that, to be quite honest, aren't available in very many school corporations. That brings 63 years of alumni back to the school corporation for passion. So, anyway, congratulations, nicely done.
Okay, number 9, retirement resolution. Dr. Taylor.
Well, it's my pleasure, with some regret, to recognize at this time Ms. Peg Rabb. Peg, if you would come join me. Peg is a long-term Lebanon employee in elementary physical education, and through her tenure, I think she has had the opportunity not only to work with literally tens of thousands of young men and women, but also to see physical education move to a wellness and life program. Peg always represented that well. It's with sadness that I see you going. It's with envy I see you going. But it's leave knowing full well that you have an impact on literally thousands of students and hundreds of teachers and one very happy superintendent. So we have a resolution, if we could read. Mr. Mayor?
This resolution, adopted this 18th day of July, 2017, by the Board of School Trustees of the Lebanon Community School Corporation of Lebanon, Boone County, Indiana, witnesseth, whereas Peggy L. Rabb, professional educator of this school corporation, retired with honor from that position at the end of the 2016-17 school year, and whereas she has during her professional distinguished career rendered skilled and professional instructional leadership to the many pupils whom she has served, and whereas those accomplishments have reflected credit upon herself, the educational profession, this school corporation, and upon our entire community. Now, therefore, the Board of School Trustees does hereby resolve that the most sincere thanks, appreciation, and gratitude are extended to Peggy L. Rabb on this occasion for distinguished and meritorious services rendered, and further that best wishes are conveyed herewith for her continuing health and happiness, that she might enjoy her new career of retirement. Adopted July 18, 2017 by the Board of School Trustees, Lebanon Community School Corporation.
Peggy, on behalf of the school board and staff, I can accept this small token of appreciation and our sincere thanks to all of you.
I want to thank all of you and your dedication to Lebanon Community Schools and hiring good principals and good staff, because I've been blessed with many good principals, as I have two of them, or actually 3 of them I've had right here in this room, and they've been so good to support me, and special areas sometimes kind of get loaded, and they've done a good job of bringing us in and including us in everything that we do, so I appreciate that. And I've made a lot of good memories and a lot of lifelong friends. I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herr.
All right, moving on, number 10, revision to the LHS handbook. Mr. O'Rourke.
Good evening. This evening, what I'm here to ask your approval on is Through some thought, some site visits, and also just looking at our data, Mr. G, Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Levine, and myself have kind of spent some time, especially the first part of June, reflecting on our discipline continuum, what was being effective, what wasn't being effective. Part of our continuum was Friday and Saturday schools. Friday schools we found, to be pretty effective. The students are here at school, so their attendance rate was pretty high attending Friday school. But we noticed Saturday schools not so much. And then what would happen is students would not attend Saturday school, and sometimes for legitimate reasons, transportation issues and so forth. That just caused the discipline continuum to increase. Skipping Saturday school ended up being our leading reason for kids eventually being suspended out of school. And that in itself, sometimes that suspension out of school resulted on really what was not a really major infraction that we would suspend a student out of school for. So once again, through some reflection, some site visits, we came across the idea of doing those extended times on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And our rationale for that is the kids are at school, so it's much easier for us to keep them after school. It is also in the middle of the week where we can more easily get work from teachers, work that's relevant. Sometimes Saturday mornings and so forth aren't the best time, or the students would have spotty attendance, so things wouldn't get done. And so we feel like we can get more work from the kids. Often these are kids that need to get some additional work done. We'll have better attendance and better way to deal with them, and really doesn't change anything in our discipline continuum other than shifting some days. And so basically what we've done in the handbook is gone through and removed all Friday and Saturday school language and replaced them with Tuesday and Thursday school language. So what I'm asking from you is your approval to make that shift from a Friday, Saturday school view to a Tuesday, Thursday. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about that.
How many kids do you think on average we have that are in a Friday and Saturday school?
So that's progressive, to be honest, because obviously like attendance is something that as students get unexcused absences,
right.
The first couple, early in the year you don't have as many, they have absences to give, but then, later in each semester that becomes more. So maybe, early in a semester you may have 20 kids in a Friday school. Later in a semester you may have 40 where you have to have 2 people, just
right.
depends. So discipline is progressive, and so as the semester goes on, there's more likelihood that a student, even for an insubordination offense, because maybe they've had detentions and so forth,
right.
It gets raised to a Friday school. So
what about kids that go multiple times?
yeah, significant. We have our occasional kids that get one Friday school, but I would say, this is not hard data. This is my maybe experience, and I would say probably at least 50 to 60% of the kids in a Friday school are kids that have had multiple ones.
Right.
And maybe even a little higher. I'm trying to be a little conservative. And like I said, our approach with this, there's some other things we're looking at that aren't really handbook issues, just in how we work with kids, how our staff works with kids, how we maybe start, while we still need to have a discipline continuum for students that violate policy, really looking at ways that we can reward, recognize appropriate behavior. And I think that's something as a corporation we've also talked about, is just how we can try to recognize students that are modeling appropriate behavior, so the recognition that kids are getting, if I want to get recognition, if I want to get attention, let's try to make it easy to get attention in a positive manner and not have to use negative aspects. Also attendance, that's something that if we can find ways to really, the kids that are frequently missing school, there's reasons for that, but if we can find ways where this is a place that they really want to be, then maybe that'll cut down on attendance. So there's a lot of things here. We're actually getting ready to have a faculty retreat, and very proud we got about 75-80% of our faculty that's going to meet for 2 days, and this is one of our big topics, is how do we get better, and what do we need to do to get better, and how do we reach our kids, how do we engage them, how do we get them in the building, how do we help them behave, how do we help them understand employability skills, a lot of things that we've been talking about for quite some time. So this is just probably a longer explanation than you wanted, but really what we're trying to do is look at something a little differently, and instead of using a Friday, Saturday weekend for discipline, trying to put it during the work week, where we can have more attendance and also provide them probably more work to do. If they have a test they missed on Monday or what have you, then we can have them make it up during that Friday, or during that Tuesday school and so forth, and not wait till the end of the week. We think it's something, you know, let's try it and see how it does. It really, there's not a downside to it, and if anything, it could be a real positive.
Here's my opinion on that is, it seems like now we are trying to make it easier for them, and you know, if it's Friday and Saturday, if they're not going to attend it, then we need to take some other action. So now we're trying to make it so it's more convenient for them on Tuesday and Wednesday. And I just have an issue with, I've heard about kids multiple times in this, and they know the game, and so to me it's like we're rewarding those kids, and we should put the hammer down on those kids or in that. And I think it's just more for kids that have been there multiple times. And
well, I think, and I understand
Right.
what you're saying, and I also understand to a great extent a lot of our students don't have the same wherewithals that we may have had at home or that we have at home with our own children, and it's hard to quantify and it's hard to understand why some of the decisions that are made. But honestly, a Saturday morning for some of those families, they don't even have a reliable vehicle. If it wasn't for busing, they wouldn't be at school. And so I understand what you're saying, and our intent is not to make it easier for kids that
I
misbehave.
understand that.
But our intent is to be productive in our time. And if those kids aren't showing up on Saturday morning and is all we're doing is suspending them out of school, we've really got no production out of them at all. And if we can get those kids to stay on a Thursday instead, and we get production out of them, then we don't have to take them out of school one more time that they've now missed class and missed an opportunity to learn. It is not intended at all to make it easier. It's intended to make it more effective.
Right.
But I understand your point, and your point's well taken.
So, remind me, or refresh me, what is, you get, how many in-school suspensions does a student receive before they're suspended out of the building?
Yeah. So we have a discipline continuum. A lot of it's outlined in here. Some of it, not every offense can be, but like, for example, the tardies, attendance, things like that are cut and dry. They're laid out in here. So your first unexcused absences was a Friday school. Now it's a Tuesday school. Your second was a Friday Saturday. Now it's a Tuesday Thursday, and it's progressive from there. I guess I'm trying to think. From the ISS standpoint, we try to avoid in-school suspension unless a student needs to be removed from a classroom because they've been insubordinate or they're maybe done something where there's a threat that they could be, they're going to get in a fight with another student. We want them to be in class. I'd rather punish them on their time than the classroom time. And so we try to stay away from in-school as much as possible unless it's just something that we have to, that's the safest place for everybody, or we need to remove them and de-escalate the situation. But honestly, we try to use Friday, Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday schools because that's more of a, they don't mind going into ISS. Matter of fact, some kids like it because then it's quiet and they can do their work, and they'll go misbehave for a while, then I'll go sit in ISS and get caught up on their work. That's not really what we're looking for. So ISS, really, we try not to use that as that. We use it for a situation where we need to de-escalate. So sometimes a student will never have ISS and will end up being suspended out of school. For example, something where attendance situations, kind of silly. Who wants to suspend a kid out of school who's missing school?
Right.
But sometimes that's the continuum you have to use before you can go toward expulsion or something like that. And we obviously try not to do that. Really, in-school suspension is not part of our discipline continuum. Like you'll see if you look at any of our things that are listed in here, from attendance to cell phone violations to tardies and stuff, ISS is not part of that because those aren't things that kids need to be removed from the classroom for. Those aren't de-escalation things. So we try not to use ISS as a safe haven for misbehavior.
But how many times will a kid get in trouble if I say, okay, go home for 3 days? Does it depend?
You know, it depends on circumstance. If a student's involved in a fight, they're gonna get suspended out of school. First offense. I mean, there's zero tolerance for that. If a student is just being, somewhat disrespectful and you've had multiple conversations, you know, it's a progression. I mean, like I said, we want kids in the classroom, we want kids in school. And there's probably some significant research, the more kids get suspended out of school, the closer they get to not being in school altogether, whether that's through expulsion or their own decisions. So, you know, we don't want to suspend kids out of school, but, you know, like I said, sometimes you can't be easy on them and you have to say, you know, this is the way it is. And as a parent, your child's not gonna be in school. The downside now is they sit at home. And unfortunately, that's not always a great punishment for them. But good points.
Anything else? All right.
Thank you very much for
Everyone
considering.
vote on this. So board, we need a motion for the revision to the LHS handbook.
I'll make Mr.
Mr.
Warner.
Wire, we have a
Second.
Mr. Ware, any other questions? All in favor of the new revisions to the LHS handbook, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Number 11, crisis and consultation service agreement with Inwell. Dr. T.
Thank you very much, Mr. As we all know anymore, it takes more than just a school and faculty to work with children. They come to us with a number of other issues, some related to mental health, some related to situation and circumstances in their environment. But it becomes more important to us now than any time before that we have partners that work with us in those areas that bring expertise that sometimes as educators we don't have. Integrated Wellness Services has been, Inwell is how we call it, has been one of those partners that I've had the privilege to work with for every year since I've been superintendent. Starting with the time I worked with Ms. Clark when she was with Cummins to when she created her own company. We've had nothing but great success, and they've been a true partner with Lebanon Community Schools. An example is what I mentioned earlier, their coordination of this crisis management, crisis process that they bring together. What we have lacked, and in Boone County we've had a number of different agencies that have come through and said we'll deal with mental health, we'll deal with this issue. There's not been a real consistency that I've seen except with Inwell. And so I felt it was incumbent upon the school corporation to solidify that, not so much from a financial standpoint, but just from a recognition standpoint of that partnership. And so I asked Ms. Clark to come in and we talked, and we actually meet on a regular basis just to touch base on everything from services to kids to the latest that we can do to help our students. But I asked that she would she be interested in entering into a more formal agreement. And through my tenure here, we've gone through a number of agencies that have come and gone, and there's not been that consistency. And so she was most gracious in sitting down and working with me and developing what I present to the board this evening for your vote, which is a recognized agreement of the cooperation that we have with Inwell. There's a small financial statement in there, but I can promise you it doesn't even come close to touching the services they provide. They work well with everyone from insurance providers to the government agencies that help fund this, but they're there readily supporting every one of our school buildings, whether it's a presence in helping with a special needs situation or whether it's a crisis response. The one thing that Lynette has proven in her leadership of Inwell is that they are not only reactive, but they're more responsive. They're very proactive in working with staff and working with students. And while they're there, and unfortunately we have some very tragic circumstances with students, they're always there to help support, but they're also there on the front end of how do we get ahead of those issues before they become tragedies. And so at this time I present for the board's review and consideration a crisis and consultation service agreement between Lebanon Community School Corporation and Inwell LLC, in which they will be our quote official recognized service provider and consultant when we have issues to deal with mental health in all 6 of our schools, and probably even in the superintendent's office, because Lord knows I need help sometimes too. Thank you, Mr. Herr, for agreeing to that. So So at this time, I present for your review and consideration the proposed agreement, and would be happy to answer any questions you might have. And Ms. Clark is here with some of her staff, and she's also readily available to answer any questions.
Okay, this is a one-year agreement?
It's set up as a 1 year, but the intent would be for it to be a rolling agreement. And any time that there's any changes either to the financial arrangement and or services provided, that would come back to the board as a new agreement or an amendment, much as we've just done with our student handbook. And again, the financial item D in the front page, I think you'll see that's what the financials are. Those are minimums. Just flat out, it's a good deal.
No, yeah, I like it. Will you be at your own building, or will you be somebody?
Where if you could, would you?
Where's your office? Where's the person going to be?
Just as a practical example of the support they provide, last year, late second semester, we had a student that displayed suicide tendencies and had actually vocalized that here at school, had talked about it. It was ascertained initially in the assessment that there was a legitimate concern for the student's well-being and health, and that there needed to be a placement made. This placement, the closest placement we could come up with was Bloomington, Indiana. And so we had to transport the child. Lynette actually took it upon herself to accompany the law enforcement officer that transported the child to Bloomington, not only to help facilitate the situation, but then also to ensure that our student was provided the appropriate placement and worked with the parents as well. That goes above and beyond. That was late in the evening. That she didn't have to do that. And that's the kind of services that I've continually seen. And again, this is not a token arrangement. I have a full expectation that we'll integrate their services beyond where we currently are, but it does establish this partnership as an official kind of recognition by the board and by our school corporation with Inwell. And that's the purpose that I really initiated this, and I appreciate Lynette and her staff working towards the arrangement that we have before us this evening.
Is this I'm thinking of mental health of Boone County. So is this do you guys work together?
They do.
Okay.
In fact, I actually, we co-locate, actually the three of us here today, we're the business partners, and we co-locate in the building. Their services tend to complement a lot of what we do. I feel, so we, Pascal, the executive director, and I collaborate very much daily, on different crisis scenarios, whether it be within schools, or in the community. But we actually, the big difference in us, we actually have, the therapy, pre-therapeutic and psychiatric services to provide. Whereas he's able to do like crisis stabilization and refer. So he's going to get a lot of calls in North America, but he's going to refer them. And I would say, I can speak for him, but I would say a large percentage of the time he's referred to our agency.
I was just making sure we had a partnership there.
Yeah, and we have a real good partnership with Boone County Mental Health.
Right.
Pascal, not only the preschool, but also the work he does. But again, over the years, that has really developed into a reliance on the services Inwell provides, and I think the referral process is a great description. Now, if we have a major crisis, we have a tragic death or something, both Inwell, Boone County Mental Health, and some other agencies, Ministerial Association, they provide counselors. But that's the initial response. The long-term response then comes through the referral process that we utilize the expertise at Inwell.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, board, we need a motion to vote in for the crisis consultation service agreement with Inwell. Motion by Mr. Wiley, second by Mr. Merritt. Any other questions? All in favor of this agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Memorial recognition for Max Foster, Dr. Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Herr. As we all know, unfortunately, over the summer, we had a very tragic and sad loss of a Lebanon Community School Corporation employee, and not just an employee, but an individual that personified everything that's good about our school corporation. Max Foster worked with our maintenance folks, but it was just an unbelievable individual. There was never a question of the quality of his work, but more importantly, there was never a question of the quality of his heart. He'd go to school for one assignment to put in 2 or 3 new wall switches, and every teacher that saw him would ask him to do something, and before you know it, he was doing 5 or 6 or 7 different supports. He goes beyond tragic, but I just felt there's few of those individuals in this world that we have a chance to learn from and grow from. Not only did we lose a quality employee, but I think our students lost a role model that in this day and age is lacking. So, with the board's approval, I have made a proposal. Mr. Tate and I have talked about it. We would like to have a recognition of Max Foster as our employee. We would like it to be a living kind of recognition, and we want to purchase a tree, and we'll plant it at the middle school. We'll have a plaque that denotes that in no way comes close to acknowledging all that he meant to the school corporation, but in some way it keeps his memory there, his presence in schools, which was always there. So while it doesn't require a vote, I simply wanted to share with the board that we see a lot of tragedy, unfortunately, but for some reason this one really is significant. Not that he was any more important or any less important than anyone else. It's just the quality of his life and what he shared with our school corporation cannot be replicated. So we plan to then purchase and plant that tree. We'll have a small recognition, and Max Foster will continue to have a presence at Lebanon Community School Corporation for decades and decades to come.
Where will it be planted?
Charles?
Looking at the athletic entrance,
To the middle school?
we're completely redoing that entrance. Thought that'd be a good place to go.
South side.
Not only fixing the wall switches, I know he had an impact on a lot of students too. The interaction that he had with students on a day-to-day basis, both of my kids, reflected in class. They were in shock.
I don't think I ever saw him without a smile. Ever. Whether it was in our office hanging signs or, like I said, in a school building hanging a teacher's bulletin board. So anyway, I appreciate the board's support and your appreciation for the work that Max Foster did for Lebanon Community School Corporation.
All right, thank you. New business, Mr. Tate.
I have nothing at this time, sir.
Other business dates, online registration is July 12th to the 26th. August 10th is the first student day, and August 15th is the next board meeting here. Anything else?
Have we had, I know that I've seen it on social media, but have we done a phone blast or anything like that on online registration?
Ms. Totterud, we put it on social media. I don't believe we've done a we went to online to kind of encourage. Our numbers are lagging. We'd like to see folks. It helps us with staffing. It helps us with planning. We simplified the process so we could encourage as many folks as we can.
I think
And we
maybe
can
they
look at
hear
that
your
phone.
beautiful voice. Maybe
Mr. Tate's voice, I think he would be more than happy to get on there.
yeah.
Thank you.
Football bleachers and all that. You talked about the basketball and tennis.
As Dr. Taylor said, they did pour concrete today for the football. There's still no other supplies delivered. The contractor is still standing by his word that it'll be completed by August 1st. I honestly don't see that happening. If I see it completed by August 10th or 12th, I would be happy, and I know Mr. Levine would be happy also.
Our first game is away though, isn't it?
First home game's August 23rd.
August 23rd.
Yes. We are also, as far as the interior, like Dr. Taylor said, the lower bleachers are 95% completed. The upper bleachers,
5%.
we think the materials are all here. I'm not sure. So that's going to be a big challenge. The floor will be completed on time, but the upper bleachers. They're telling us they're having problems getting quality labor. That's your problem, not mine.
Yeah.
You bid the job, you knew the time frame. I don't like excuses. We had a stern talk last week.
Is there any financial ramifications if they don't?
You're not legally allowed to do that. You can just stand in line and give a bad reference if you're ever asked.
You can not approve payment. We want to keep good thoughts, good weather. Charles.
They did spell tigers right, if that's counts. I was
Yeah, that's
watching them put
key.
the black seats in, so that was
I
good
thought the I
news.
was missing there for a minute. The key in on the I.
I thought the G was a J, so we were Tigers, but other than that, Charles done a nice job coordinating with Schmidt, and our concern was there was a number of weeks of good weather. I think May 22nd, they had access. And so from the standpoint of not really having an excuse, I know labor's an issue, trust me, I know that, but we're not talking skilled labor, we're talking physical labor. Also want to acknowledge that Coach Smock and his football team did some work and were compensated for it, but just some labor. And that was a suggestion, I think, of Mr. Tate and Mr. Levine's. So we provided standard labor for them, but we will have every expectation that they will meet their date and their time.
I give a lot of credit to Jim Whaling's daily checking on them 2-3 times a day and following up with the contractors, following up with Smith. He's really worked hard to coordinate all these summer projects.
I just have this fear they're going to install a press box on the visitor side of the field. They'll do it over the weekend, so.
Have we got the new buses?
They are delivered and they are putting, not to us, they're at Midwest, they're putting the cameras and the final touches on them this year. So they'll be here for the start of school year.
Anything else? Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.